Hello, everyone. I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'm going to be breaking down our next matchup for UFC 323. In this one, we have Marvin Vettori taking on Brunno Ferreira. So this is a middleweight clash where veteran grit meets hungry finishing potential. Vettori arrives as the experienced all-rounder, a man who's battled the top of this division and relies more or less on discipline, wrestling, and steady pressure. Now he takes on Brunno Ferreira, who comes in with a dangerous mix of finishing instincts, explosiveness, and a resume full of knockouts and submissions. This fight could end in a grind, it could end in a scramble, or a sudden explosion. Really depends on whose plans lands. And today we're going to break down everything from how their styles meet to just in general what their styles look like. Now, really quick looking at their last five. For Bruno Ferreira, he's coming in 4-1 in his last five. He had knocked out Phil Haas and Dustin Sosus, then lost to Abus Magomedov at UFC 308 via submission. But since then, submitted Armin Petrosian and then submitted Jackson McVeigh back at UFC 318. And you look at Bruno Ferreira's entire MMA record, right, 14-2, he's never won a decision before. Meanwhile, Marvin Vettori, pretty rough go of things. He's currently 1-4 in his last five. Granted, you look at the names, right? He lost to Whitaker about 3 years ago. His only win was to the first fight against Roman Dolidze. That was back at UFC 286. Since then, a 3-fight skid where Jared Cannonier destroyed him about 2.5 years ago. He didn't fight until then, or he hasn't fought since March of this year. Or, sorry, after the Cannonier fight, he didn't fight for, like I said, that fight was about a year and a half ago, or sorry, 2.5 years ago. Then he fought March of this year. He lost to Roman Dolidze in the rematch, and then most recently lost to Brendan Allen at UFC 318. So it's sort of also a battle of momentum, and it would be very interesting because if there's one thing about Marvin Vettori that we all know, it is he's one of the most durable human beings to ever step foot in this octagon. I mean, he's never been finished in the octagon. And conversely, Bruno Ferreira's never won a decision. Won a decision before. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Now, looking at Marvin Vettori, he steps in as a fighter built on durability, wrestling pedigree, and a well-rounded MMA foundation. Standing at about 6 foot, he uses the southpaw stance. And throughout his UFC career, he's shown an ability to mix strikes, takedowns, and ground control. Vettori's strength lies in his cardio, his grappling chain, and his relentlessness. He has solid takedown accuracy and defense, which allows him to choose when the fight goes to the mat, a big advantage against strikers or finish-hungry opponents. And when the fight goes deep, Vettori tends to wear down his opponents, use pressure, top control, and volume to slowly strip away resistance. Now, he's not a finisher very much. I think his last finish was a submission over Carl Robinson, which was many years ago. But he's pretty good at just being the more durable guy, outlasting his opposition, and then going in and putting putting a claim at the end of the fight. Usually how Vettori wins. I would say Vettori's more so a jack of all trades, master of none. He doesn't really do anything at a super elite level, but he does everything at a competent level. It's not like his striking's terrible, his grappling's terrible, or his wrestling's terrible. None of it. They're good. They're just serviceable, but nothing elite. Now, in terms of his striking, actually, he's not except Vettori's not known for heavy knockout power. He's more about mixing volume, counter, or takedown threats, and grappling skills to win rounds or force mistakes. That said, against elite or heavy hitters, his less flashy striking can become a vulnerable point. But because when you don't finish fights often, trading against a dangerous puncher or grappler can be risky. Overall, Vettori offers experience, toughness, stamina, and a complete skill set. In the fights where he can control duration and pace, lean on wrestling and grappling, he tends to impose as well. And like I said, he's one of the most durable human beings I've ever seen in the octagon. I mean, he survived against Jared Cannonier, who put a beating on him. Went 5 rounds with Costa, Izzy twice, Whitaker. Now, granted, Izzy and Whitaker aren't like, Francis Ngannou of the middleweight division, but they're very, very good technical strikers, and they can't hurt their opponents. And For Vettori just outlast them. Well, sorry, he did lose those fights. He lost them handily, but he was tough and he kept going for all 25 minutes. So there's one thing that you can count Vettori on is that he's going to be a tough son of a bitch and he's going to keep going after you. He doesn't give up on himself. That's something for sure. Now looking at Brunno Ferreira, he's the kind of fighter who brings finishing energy just about every time he enters the cage. He fights in Orthodox, competes, 14-2 in the division. Like I said, all finishes. And he is a well-rounded finisher. He can submit opposition and he can knock out opponents. He also is a pretty good judoka. That's how he got his last 2 submission wins against Armin Petrosian via armbar from the back. And armbar, what was it? Oh, yeah, it was from crucifix and then went belly down against McVeigh. Ferreira carries explosive power in his striking. He's not afraid to let it fly early. He has scored multiple knockdowns, showing that when he lands clean, he can end fights quickly. But he isn't a one-dimensional brawler. As I said, he brings a grappling and submission threat. He's earned several wins via submission. That dual threat of striking plus grappling make him unpredictable, and opponents can't just prepare to stand or just wrestle. They must respect both. I mean, he's also pretty creative. He landed the flying knee on Phil Hawes or the spinning back elbow on Dustin Siltzus. He's a pretty creative striker. And the key attribute, as I've said about Ferreira, is the finishing instinct. He tends to push the pace early. He look for chaos, openings, and explosive strikes and or transitions. Ferreira is willing to commit to offense, whether by punching, takedown defense, or submissions, giving him a dangerous edge, especially against opponents who rely on structure or patience. As you saw, and he's even patient himself at times. You saw when he made his debut against Gregory Rodriguez. Ferreira was just waiting by the fence, just waiting for the opening, and then landed, I think it was the left hook, if I'm not mistaken, on Rodriguez and knocked him out cold. However, there is one issue, or one weakness of Ferreira. Ferreira's path to victory often depends on early success. He's used to ending fights quickly, and if he fails to secure an early finish and the fight drags on, questions arise about his gas tank and whether he can maintain pace under pressure. Still, when he's sharp and decisive, he offers a high-risk, high-reward style that can change fights in a moment. And that is something important. You look at his record, UFC-wise anyway, wins and losses. There's only one fight I can think of that went to the 3rd round. That was against Abus Magomedov. And both were pretty tired in that fight, but Abus had just a bit more in the tank in order to submit Ferreira in that fight. And you look at all of his wins, he has never seen a 3rd round in any of his fights. All right, McVeigh in the 2nd, Petrosky the 2nd, what else? Oh yeah, Stoltzfus the 1st round, Phil Hawes the 1st round. See where I'm getting at? He very rarely ever sees the 3rd round. And against someone as durable as Vettori, that might be an issue. Now, for me, this matchup becomes an interesting battle of stability versus violence, of structured wrestling and grinding versus explosive finishing ability. If Vettori enforces his game, he'll look to slow things down. He'll threaten takedowns, force grappling exchanges, and pressure Ferreira's base. He'll aim not to avoid wild brawls, make Ferreira commit, and punish mistakes and or overextensions. And in that scenario, Vettori's durability, cardio, and overall experience, and plus his well-rounded skill set, which he does have, give him a solid path to control. But Ferreira doesn't want a slow grind. Of course, he wants to inject energy early, disrupt Vettori's rhythm before the veteran gets comfortable, and prevent grappling-based dominance. If Ferreira lands his early strikes clean or manages to scramble scrappy exchanges into submission threats, he can turn this fight into chaos, a scenario that favors vitality over control. And his finishing abilities mean a single mistake from Vettori could cost him in this fight. In short, Vettori wants to control structure and gradual dominance. Kind of just impose his will, use his wrestling, and overall good ground control, mixing his striking for sure, but mostly uses wrestling. And meanwhile, Ferreira wants openings, movement, openings, unpredictability, and danger early. If Ferreira pushes pace and avoids long wrestling exchanges, the fight swings towards him. If Vettori maintains composure, then I think he can grind out Ferreira. For this one, I gotta go with Brunno Ferreira. Here's why. I believe Ferreira mix of power, finishing instincts, and overall just his unpredictability give him the best shot of forcing this fight into chaos, where Vettori struggles to. Now, there is a great concern. You look at the odds, are basically a pick 'em, and I think that's fair because, arguably Vettori is the best opponent that Ferreira's ever fought. Vettori is also still young at 32. He's just a very experienced 32-year-old, and he's still got a lot of damage. And if Vettori is have another path victory, I think he can win a decision against Ferreira if he's able to make this fight drag out long. But I believe the power of Ferreira are going to be the big difference maker. I think, like I said, his unpredictability with his striking is going to come into play big time in this fight. And I think he can win a similar style to Jared Cannonier, where Cannonier hurt Vettori with big strikes and had the bigger moments in the rounds. While Vettori had his moments, they just were not as impactful as Cannonier's. And I think Ferreira can get the same. So make no mistake, I do see a path to victory for Vettori, and I do think he has a good possibility of winning this fight. But I lean towards Ferreira's power, explosiveness, and overall just what's the word for it? Drive to get the finish. I don't think he's going to finish Vettori. I mean, nobody has, and I don't know if Ferreira will be the first. But I do think he will get the biggest win of his career in this one. So for my official prediction, I'm going to go with Brunno Ferreira, and I'm going to pick him via decision. But if he can finish Marvin Vettori, that'd be amazing for his career. But with that being said, that's been my prediction of this fight. If you liked the video, leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below on who you think's going to win. Until then, I've been Bo from Brutal Commentary. Stay calm, stay respectful, and enjoy the violence. See y'all next time.